We're Jen and Chris Corsi with Thrive Today, and today we want to talk to you about the need to stop, the need to give other people a breather, the need to recognize when people are getting towards that maxed out, overwhelmed spot, and what we can do about it.
You know what? One of the ways we build trust is when we stop, when we see that we're overwhelming people. People need a breather. People need a pause. People need us to turn it down. We take a break. So when we see people, they've reached the limit of their capacity and they just need that pause button pressed. This is called skill 9, knowing when to stop. And there's a reason during the coronavirus that the very severely violent domestic abuse cases are up, because people are home, people are stressed out, and all this violence and this unresolved pain is just creeping out, and people don't have skill 9. And so what happens when I don't have the skill is I don't notice that I'm overwhelming you, or I just don't care. So this is probably one of the hardest skills that we train at Thrive, but one of the most needed and urgent of all the skills. So we're going to do something today.
Today we're going to talk to you about telling stories of when you have stopped. Because as we look at times in our life when we've noticed overwhelm in other people, when we've pulled back, when we've stopped, it helps our brain recognize that, hey, that's what I want to repeat. But it also gives an example to others who can then have a picture of what it would look like. Then they might not have had anything on file before.
You know, stories are really impactful. This is a great way to spread relational skills, is by telling stories. So we're trying to update the brain's identity center. And so stories are a great way to help people learn this skill and to kind of get a gauge, what does it even look like to use this skill? Now, this is a skill that God used with Moses. As we know in Exodus 33, I believe it is, Moses asked God, I want to see your glory. And so what God does before he shows his glory is he protects Moses from himself. The Bible says that he put Moses in a cleft in the rock, and God used his hand to shield Moses. So God was protecting Moses from himself. So that's what we want to do here, is really be able to, you know what, let's share some stories. When have you seen somebody use skill 9? When have you used this skill? What are those moments where you've seen someone do a great job at pausing when they noticed that people were needing a breather? When have you done this? And so we want to share these stories, and we want to give examples of maybe how voice tone, facial cues, body posture, movements, gestures, all of those things tell us a story that, oh, I see, when I raised my voice, I saw your eyes get big. Or when I was angry and I took a step closer, I noticed that you leaned back. I'm sorry, that was too much. So we want to really, kind of hone in on, how do you know when someone needs a breather? What kinds of things do you see? How do you know when you need a breather? So we want to be able to push that pause button at the right time, and we want to tell these stories.
So recently I wrote a blog called A Monster Ate My RCs, and so you can find that on our website if you want to see more details about it. But essentially it was about an interaction I had with my kids, and I was out of relational mode. I had fallen offline, and I was grumpy, and I was sharp, and I was snappy with them, and I noticed that overwhelm start to build on their face, and I just noticed that kind of like frozen look on their face, and I realized the impact I was having on them. And so I took a deep breath and I realized I needed to pull myself back here, and I needed to turn this moment around. And so I said, guys, I think a monster snuck into my house and ate my relational circuits. Rawr! And we all laughed, and it kind of diffused it. And then I was able to apologize. Mommy got a little bit intense there. I'm sorry. And I was able to notice and then pull it back. Now, there are moments when I don't notice as quickly. It happens. If we didn't grow up with this in our home, if this wasn't modeled for us, it's really hard for us to know how to do this. Our default is just to push through, because if we haven't had our limits respected, it's really hard to know how to do it for others, which is why the stories you tell might be thinking about how other people have done that for you, or how you've seen other people do it with each other. But telling these stories sets an example. It gives a picture. It's almost like a little movie your brain can play on how I can handle things in this.
And there's a ton of examples in our world where people don't have the skill. We see violence, aggression, abuse, all kinds of examples where the skill's missing. So we're really going to hone in on, here's a great example I saw yesterday when I was at the store. Let's tell those stories, and families, come up with a language that you can use. When you notice someone needs a breather, things are getting intense, come up with the language and offer that relational life preserver today.
Mm-hmm. If you want to dig more into this, learn a little bit more about Skill 9, Transforming Fellowship is a great place. If you want some exercises that you can practice it, Relational Skills in the Bible and 30 Days of Joy are both great books that have some practical exercises people can do, and just to give you some extra practice with that.